My world fell apart as soon as the front door snapped shut. As I listened to the cab pull away from the curb in my sister's living room, I realized that Jared and Brooke had left on their Caribbean trip. 5 days of sunlight and umbrella cocktails while I watched their daughter. Grinning, I turned around to ask Nola what she wanted to do first. Perhaps we could read, watch a movie, or bake cookies together as we usually did. Nola, however, was not grabbing her iPad. She was not writing a message to be read aloud by the text-to-speech program. She was simply standing there, gazing at me with a level of intensity one had never witnessed in her 8 years of life. Then my niece, who I thought was born silent, the young child who had remained silent since she was a toddler, parted her lips. "Don't sip the tea your mother made, Auntie. She had a nasty plot." Her voice sounded flawless and crisp, as if she had been speaking for her entire life. In my veins, my blood became freezing water. "I need you to understand how I got here, so allow me to go back roughly 6 hours. How everything I believed to be true about my family turned out to be a well-crafted falsehood as I stood in my sister's home. Lisa Rains is my name. My age is 32. In Columbus, Ohio, I am employed as an accountant for a mid-size company. I know it's exciting stuff. I fantasize of perfectly balanced spreadsheets, while others think of romantic adventures and exotic trips. I use numbers to feel in control according to my therapist. Most likely my therapist is correct. It was a fairly typical start to the morning. Quiet, flat Saturday coffee. My phone rang while I was genuinely enjoying the peace. My older sister Brooke and I were only 6 years apart, but at times it seemed like 60. The first thing that should have warned me was the honey sweetness of her voice. That voice was exclusively utilized by Brooke to express her desires. "I have the largest favor to ask of you, Lisa." It turned out that she and Jared had reserved a cruise for their anniversary. They wanted someone to watch Nola during their last-minute, romantic 5-day trip to the Caribbean. I said, of course, as that's what I always told Brooke. I really meant it when I said that I would love to spend time with her. I really loved my niece. There was something unique about Nola. Despite the fact that using an iPad for communication may occasionally be draining, her large, vigilant eyes seemed to take in everything. She would rest against my shoulder when I read to her, and I could sense that she was at ease, as if my voice were a safe haven. You see, Nola has a strange problem from birth. At least that's what Brooke consistently explained to everyone. A neurological condition that interfered with her speech. When she was around 3 years old, the physicians discovered it. Nothing could be done according to Brooks. I never questioned it. Why would I? She was my sister. Mothers are familiar with their offspring. Besides, I didn't spend a lot of time with Nola in her early years. Soon after her birth, I had accepted a job in Chicago. Good chance. Couldn't refuse it. For Christmas and possibly a few weekends I would take a plane home. Nola was silent by the time she turned 3. The entire story had already been written by Brooke. When our mother became ill 2 years ago, I returned to Ohio. The sluggish, horrible kind of cancer. I wanted to help and be nearer. I began reading to Nola, bringing her books, and simply being there for her throughout those months. We created something genuine even in the absence of words. Harold, our father, passed away from heart problems 3 years prior to Mom. He was the kind of man who fixed things without complaining. He was calm and reliable. The family felt as though they had lost their anchor after his departure. Their whole life savings, Dad's life insurance, and a trust worth roughly $1.2 million were all left behind when Mom ultimately passed away 14 months ago. The terms were unambiguous. For any significant withdrawals, Brooke and I had to sign. That's how smart Mom was. Since Brooke already had property at the time, she also left me the family house. Seemed reasonable to me. I wonder now whether my mother knew anything that I didn't. But let's go back to that Saturday morning. Around noon, I took a car to Brooke's residence. Large grass, nice location. The type of home that resembles a magazine cover. Unusually, Brooke hugged me at the door. My sister was not a big hugger. "Lisa, you're a lifesaver." She really did look flawless as usual. The expensive luggage is waiting by the door, and the hair and nails are done. The taxi had just pulled up, and Jared was throwing luggage into it. He hardly gave me a glance. A brief wave, a muttered hi. Jared appeared anxious and perspiring, yet he was constantly tense. I didn't give it much thought. I was shown around the house by Brooke as if I had never been there before. This is the kitchen. This is Nola's room. This is the TV remote. After that, she took out a big thermos with a yellow lid from the refrigerator. She put it in my hands and said, "I made this for you. Stress-relieving herbal tea. Lisa, you appear worn out. You've been putting in too much work." She expressed it in a way that seemed strange and overly demanding. However, because I did the same with Brooke, I grinned and thanked her. I thanked her, grinned, and never resisted. Even when I didn't ask for the answers, she had always had them. Brooke prescribed lavender oil, green juice, and a vision board filled with images of George Clooney when I went through a difficult breakup at the age of 25. She had stated, "Manifest your future husband." I still don't trust vision boards. The cab gave a honk. Brooke gave me another embrace. They gave each other 2 strange hugs in a single day and hurried out the door. Without saying anything, Jared followed. I watched as they got inside the car and it drove off. After shutting the front door, I turned around and saw Nola standing there staring at me, as if she were going to announce the end of the world. "Don't sip the tea your mother made, Auntie. She had a nasty plot." I was unable to think or breathe. I still held the thermos, but it seemed like a bomb all of a sudden. My niece, who I thought was born silent, had just warned me that my own sister was attempting to poison me in a crystal-clear voice. Before we go any further, if you are enjoying this story, please click the subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is. I read every single comment, and I sincerely appreciate your support. Let's go back to what transpired next. I placed the thermos as if it were radioactive on the counter. I almost dropped it because my hands were trembling so much. I then faced Nola once more and dropped on my knees so that I was at eye level with her. I muttered, "Nola, are you able to speak?" She gave a nod. Her eyes were wide with fear. However, they also had a ferocious quality. Something was certain. "Auntie, I always could." Mom forced me to stop. The space was skewed. I needed to balance myself by placing a hand on the ground. "What caused you to stop?" At that point, my 8-year-old niece told me a story that completely disproved everything I believed to be true about my family. Nola wasn't silent from birth. She never suffered from a neurological disorder. That was untrue. Until she was 3 years old, my sister had been lying for 5 years. Nola spoke like a typical toddler. She sung songs, asked a million questions, learnt new words every day, uttered her first words and said, "I love you," before going to bed. Then, one afternoon, everything was different. Nola was in her room upstairs playing. She sneaked downstairs to fetch some juice because she was thirsty. Mommy was on the phone in the kitchen. The young girl standing in the doorway escaped her notice. Words were heard by Nola. She recognized some of them, but she didn't grasp the majority of them. "Money is out of the picture, Aunt Lisa. We receive everything when Dad is gone, followed by Mom. She has total faith in me. She is incredibly foolish." Nola was 3 years old. She understood Aunt Lisa, but she had no idea what "out of the picture" meant. She also comprehended her mother's chilly, cruel remarks about being foolish. "Mommy, what does out of the picture mean?" Nola asked her mother the following day, naive and perplexed. Brooke's expression chilled. She crouched down till they were face to face after grabbing Nola's arms too firmly, creating little bruises. "Listen to me very carefully," she added. "Aunt Lisa will suffer a dreadful fate if you ever talk to anyone about anything again. You have a dangerous voice. She is hurt by every word you say. You won't make another sound if you adore your aunt. Do you get it? Nola loved me. The aunt who brought her picture books was me. The person who gave her a smile as if she were the most unique person on the planet." Nola then ceased to speak. She was 3 years old. She decided to stop speaking in order to keep me safe. As this youngster described the sacrifice she had made, I sat on Brooke's kitchen floor, tears flowing down my cheeks. 5 years. Silence for 5 years. She was terrified for 5 years, believing that everything she said could harm the person she cared about the most. And that dread had been exploited by my sister, the loving mother, Brooke. She brought Nola to the doctor, pretended to be a worried mom, and obtained a diagnosis of selective mutism, but she told everyone that it was neurological and that there was nothing that could be done. She ensured that the actual medical records were hidden from view. Twice a year I traveled to Chicago. Regarding her own daughter, I had no reason to question my own sister. I was drawn to the crystal plaque on the mantle. Mother of the Year. 2 years ago, Brooke earned it from the community center. Her perseverance and commitment to her child with special needs were commended by all. All of a sudden, I wanted to toss the plaque into the sun and watch it burn. Sweetheart, what else do you know? I asked softly. Have you noticed anything else? As it happened, Nola became invisible when she was silent. Adults overlooked her presence. They assumed she couldn't comprehend or couldn't tell anyone even if she could, so they spoke freely around her. Nola witnessed everything. She observed her mother repeatedly rehearsing my signature on scrap paper until it was nearly perfect. She overheard discussions on the phone regarding the transfer of everything in the trust. Before Lisa realized what was going on, she saw her father grow increasingly terrified of her mother, accepting everything without question. She saw her mother put on a show for teachers, neighbors, and churchgoers, the ideal example of a devoted mom making sacrifices for her daughter with a disability. Additionally, Nola realized she could no longer remain silent after hearing something 2 nights ago. Like she had done hundreds of times before, she had sneaked to the top of the stairs. Her parents were preparing in the kitchen. According to Brooke, the tea will make her ill enough to visit the emergency room. Extreme tiredness and terrible stomach issues, but nothing hazardous. She will be absent for several days. While we're away, what about Nola? Jared inquired. She will be taken by Mrs. Patterson, who lives next door. I've already informed her that Lisa occasionally has episodes. She bought it wholeheartedly. We also drive to Indianapolis while Lisa is in the hospital. A lawyer who is unfamiliar with her is present. I've prepared all of the fake documents. We put my name on the entire trust. It's finished by the time Lisa gets better. She will never be able to demonstrate anything. A plan to poison me, falsify my signature, and steal more than $1 million. No cruise, no trip to the Caribbean. My sister. I drew Nola into my arms and embraced her firmly. This amazing, courageous child. For 5 years she bore this burden. She observed her mother deceiving everyone. And she had the guts to speak up when it really mattered. I muttered, "You saved me." Into her hair. "You are aware of that, correct? My life was saved by you." She gave me a hug in return. Fierce little arms encircle my neck. "Annie, I couldn't allow Mommy to harm you. No more." I turned to face the thermos on the counter. Innocent looking. Yellow cover. My devoted sister's homemade tea. Proof. I stopped crying. I felt a cold, focused feeling settle in my chest. Brooke believed she had 5 days to steal everything. She assumed I would be too ill to stop her, lying in a hospital bed. She was completely mistaken. I called Gwen Mercer first. I met Gwen while attending college. She became a nurse. Although we took different paths, I went into accounting. We remained close. She was the type of friend who, even when it hurt, told you the truth and showed up with ice cream during breakups. I had total faith in her. On the second ring, she answered. "What's going on, Lisa? I need you to come to Brooke's place immediately, Gwen. I can't explain what happened over the phone. Just come, please." She must have been afraid of something in my voice. She didn't inquire. "I'm en route." She was at the door 40 minutes later. Her hair pulled up in an untidy ponytail and still wearing scrubs from her shift. After glancing at my face, she drew me into an embrace. "Speak with me." So I did. Everything. The tea, the plan, and Nola, sweet, quiet Nola, who had warned me for the first time in 5 years. Gwen was silent for a while after I was done. She then turned to face Nola, who was seated on the couch and observing us with those large, grave eyes. Gwen approached her and dropped on her knees. "You're the bravest kid I've ever met," she whispered. "You know that." Nola nearly grinned. Gwen got to her feet. "Now it's all business. All right, let's start. We must try that tea. At the hospital lab, I know someone. Tonight she can do a quick analysis. We'll find out by morning if there's a problem." She put on gloves made of rubber. Naturally, she had some in her purse. She gently removed a sample from the thermos and sealed it in a tiny container. She shook her head and mumbled, "What kind of person poisons tea?" I was always aware that Brooke wasn't right. Do you recall her telling you that getting a haircut made your face appear less round? It wasn't a compliment. That was sister-style psychological warfare. I nearly burst out laughing. "Nearly." Gwen went on. "What else do you have?" If she has been operating this hoax, there must be additional proof. I turned to face Nola. Honey, you said you know where Mommy keeps important papers. With a nod, she got off the couch. There's a locked drawer in the office. I am familiar with the code. How do you know the code? I observed her typing it. She frequently failed to see me. A brief, melancholy silence. The silent child is never noticed. She showed us Brooke's home office, which was a tidy, tastefully furnished space that could have been found in a magazine. One drawer had a digital lock, filing cabinets, and a sizable workstation with a computer. Nola said 0315. Their wedding anniversary is March 15th. Brooke would use something sentimental, of course. Made her feel astute. I entered the code. The drawer opened with a click. My stomach turned at what we discovered within. Initial bank authorization documents that I have signed. However, I did not sign it. It was almost there. Very near. However, I noticed the improvement right away. My capital L's loop was incorrect. My handwriting would be noticeable to everyone who knew it. Despite her efforts, Brooke was not flawless. Second, the trust account's bank statements. 14 months of activity, with withdrawals consistently totaling less than $15,000. Just below the level that would cause automatic notification to federal authorities. Brooke had done her homework. My sister stole the entire amount of about $180,000 when I had great faith in her. Third, printed correspondence between Brooke and Warren Ducker, an Indianapolis lawyer. They brought up my mental illness and incapacity to handle money, while talking about the emergency transfer of trust funds. The trip was meant to be in full swing on day 4, which is when the meeting was set to take place. Fourth, a file titled Lisa Mental Health Concerns almost broke me. There were pages of notes in Brooke's handwriting, dated entries detailing my paranoid episodes, despair, unpredictable behavior, and outright fabrications. In case I ever questioned the scam, she was preparing to brand me as mentally unfit by creating a paper trail. My own sister was going to accuse me of being insane, undermine my credibility, and take everything away from me, including my reputation. Every single document, page, and date was captured on camera by Gwen. This is deliberate fraud, she remarked somberly. This isn't a rash decision. She has spent more than a year organizing this. I was already mentally organizing the data, dates, trends, the monthly withdrawal amount, and the inconsistent signatures were all part of the accountant's mind. The numbers are truthful. These figures also revealed a pretty clear picture. Gwen's phone buzzed after that. The T-analysis had been hurried by her lab contact who worked the overnight shift. The end product is a concentrated mixture of a sedative herb and a potent laxative chemical. It is completely incapacitating but not deadly. For 48 to 72 hours, anyone who drank it would be extremely sick and hardly aware. Hospital-level illness. Just as Nola stated, it wasn't Brooke's intention to murder me. She was too intelligent for that. All she needed was for me to be out of commission long enough to steal everything. I considered my $8,000 emergency savings account, which was hidden away in a different bank that no one was aware of. Years ago, a financial advisor advised me to always have cash on hand for emergencies. I had silently heeded that counsel, never bringing it up to my relatives. I was intending to use that money to pay for my battle. Boring financial planning can sometimes save your life. One more call needed to be made. Callaway Kevin. In college, we were in the same study group. While I studied accounting, he attended law school. He was now Franklin County's associate prosecutor. I gave him a call and told him everything. There was a long pause when I was done. Lisa. This is fraud, forgery, attempted poisoning, and what your sister did to that child, he ultimately declared. Psychological abuse and coercive control. That is quite serious. Extremely serious. How should I proceed? You let me take care of the legal aspect. I'll get in touch with the FBI and work with the local police. This is federal because it transcends state boundaries. We'll also get in touch with the Indianapolis attorney. He may be in on it or he may be an unintentional participant. We find out in any case. Furthermore, Brooke cannot be aware that you are aware of her. She might take off with whatever cash she has if she becomes frightened. You must convince her that everything is going according to plan. The thermos was still on the kitchen counter when I glanced at it. I had to act as though I had consumed it. Act as though I was ill. As my sister went to Indianapolis to rob me, pretend that I was defenseless and incapable. Acting for 3 days. My life's performance. I was serious when I said, I can do that. Day 2. It's time to pursue a career in acting. I sat looking at my phone in Brooke's living room. On the couch next to me, Nola was silent but vigilant. Old habits are hard to break. She continued to watch everything with those cautious eyes, even now that she was able to speak freely. I called Brooke. I anticipated it to go directly to voicemail. She would have poor cell service if she were actually on a cruise. She wasn't on a cruise, of course. She was getting ready to steal my fortune in an Indianapolis hotel. However, I had to comply. I made my voice seem weak, unsteady, and pitiful. The kind of voice someone uses when they're struggling to keep their composure. There's a serious problem, Brooke. I've been throwing up and feeling lightheaded all night. I'm having trouble standing. I believe I should visit the hospital. Nola is doing fine. If I need to go to the emergency room, Mrs. Patterson can take her. I really apologize for ruining your trip. I'll work it out. I ended the call. I had steady hands. My heart was icy. I got a thumbs up from Gwen, who was seated across from me. A performance worthy of an Oscar. Really? The final tremor in your voice. A kiss from the chef. Thank you. Observing Brooke's phony emotions throughout my life taught me valuable lessons. My phone buzzed 2 hours later. Brooke sent me a text. Not a phone call. Not a concerned voicemail asking which hospital. It was not a desperate message requesting to talk to her daughter. A message. Oh no. Soon feel better. Don't be concerned about Nola. Mrs. P is excellent with children. Take care of yourself and get some rest. I'll see you in a few days. I spent a lot of time gazing at that pink heart emoji. I may have been poisoned by my sister. She was deliberately preparing to defraud me of more than $1 million. And she responded with an exclamation point and a cartoon heart. I've seen that responding to a text with the incorrect number requires extra work. Add an emoji of a worried face at the very least. Brooke exhibits some variety. Gwen read over my shoulder and added, she didn't even ask about the hospital. I didn't ask which one. Didn't offer to return home. Didn't request to speak with Nola. No, not at all. In reality, your sister is a sociopath. I'm beginning to believe that real sociopaths put forth more effort than this. Gwen's husband, who worked in IT, gave us a brief tutorial in social media tracking over the course of the following few hours. As it happens, Brooke was more cautious than Jared. Location services were still enabled on his Instagram. Yesterday morning, he took a selfie at a coffee shop while grinning foolishly. Indianapolis, Indiana was geotagged. No Caribbean sunset, no beach, no cruise ship. They were precisely where Nola had predicted. I returned to the evidence drawer as Gwen tracked their digital presence. There must have been more. Brooke was thorough. She documented everything. Beneath a pile of previous tax returns, I discovered them near the bottom. Handwritten letters from the last months of our mother's life. As I read them, my hands shook. They came from our mother Patricia and Brooke. Written during Mom's latter stages of cancer, when she was terrified, frail, and struggling for her life. Brooke pleaded with Patricia to amend the will in these letters. Let Brooke handle everything on her own. Cut me out entirely. Lisa doesn't have a partner. Unlike me, she has no obligations. I have to raise a daughter. I must have this money. In any case, you've always preferred her. This is your opportunity to put things right at last. This is what you would do if you ever loved me. The cruelty, the guilt, and the manipulation of a dying lady. I then discovered my mother's handwritten reply on her own stationery. The handwriting was unsteady. The words were powerful, but by then she was so weak. Lisa is responsible, and I won't penalize her. I won't give you anything for being avaricious. The level of trust remains unchanged. This is the end of the conversation. Don't bring this up once more. I am disappointed in the person you have become, even though I still love you. Mom, Patricia declined. She shielded me even as she lay dying. Brooke waited. She bided her time until our mother passed away. She then began to forge. Holding my mother's last words in my hands, I sat on the floor of that ideal home office and sobbed. Not for myself but for Mom, for the betrayal she witnessed in her own daughter just before the end. Nola's little voice, Auntie. She had arrived at the door. Yes, my dear. Do those letters come from Grandma? Indeed. She came over and took a seat on the floor beside me. Her tiny hand came into contact with mine. Grandma once whispered something to me. Watch your mama, little one, she said while her mother wasn't present. There's a problem with her heart. I assumed she meant that Mama was ill, that is, that her heart was actually ailing. I didn't comprehend. I believe Grandma was aware of it. She always saw people clearly, I replied. Do you believe she was aware of me? That I wasn't actually silent? I thought of my mother, who was perceptive and sharp to the very end, the kind of woman who saw everything but carefully choose her battles. I answered slowly. I think that Grandma trusted you to be brave when it mattered, and she trusted me to figure it out eventually. My hand was squeezed by Nola. Kevin Calloway called that night with an update. The legal apparatus was operating more quickly than I had anticipated. The local cops received a thorough briefing. They were treating this seriously given the evidence of attempted poisoning, fraud, and forgery. They had consulted the FBI. Transferring money across state lines by dishonest means was known as interstate wire fraud, and it was a federal offense. By herself, Brooke had turned this into a federal lawsuit. And Warren Ducker, an attorney from Indianapolis. Kevin had been contacted by his contacts. As it happens, Ducker had been doubtful. He thought the authorization form's signatures were a little strange. He was already thinking about calling off the meeting. He consented to cooperate completely after officials clarified what was truly going on. Day 4 was scheduled for the sting. Police would be there when Brooke and Jared entered that law firm with the intention of finishing their theft. Kevin reminded me that it's your job to continue acting. Continue providing updates about your illness. Give her the impression that everything is proceeding as planned. So I did. Text on day 2. I'm still quite sickly. Perhaps food poisoning, the doctor believes. Very odd. With Mrs. Patterson, Nola is being fantastic. Text from day 3. Water is barely held down. So frail. Don't shorten your journey. I'll be all right. I just need to relax. I pictured Brooke reading each message, grinning, and believing that her naive, gullible sister was right where she wanted her. Kevin made arrangements for Nola to be questioned by a child advocacy specialist that same day. It has to be done correctly, with a child psychologist on camera, and in accordance with all legal requirements for minor witnesses. Nola felt uneasy. Her feet hung above the floor as she sat in a chair that was too large for her. However, she sat up straight when the question began. After 5 years of stillness, she used her voice, which was still unfamiliar and weird, to tell them everything. The night she overheard the tea plan, the years of watching and listening, the threats, the anxiety, the decision to stop talking, and what she heard when she was 3. She glanced at me through the observation window once it was finished. That's the most I've talked since I was 3, she stated. It feels fantastic, but my voice is worn out. I feel like I've been holding my breath underwater for a long time. At last I stood up to breathe. I had to wait even though I wanted to jump in there and hold her. Procedures. I held her so tightly that I probably squeezed the oxygen out again when they finally let me see her. I told her, 1 more day. This will end in only 1 more day. Against my shoulder she nodded. 1 more day. Day 4. Indianapolis, Indiana. 10:15 a.m. No one was going to enjoy the 3rd-floor view of downtown from Warren Ducker's law office, which is located in a professional building. I wasn't physically present. I was able to watch from Brooke's living room because Kevin had put up a secure video link. Nola took my hand as she sat next to me. On my opposite side was Gwen. As Brooke and Jared entered via the front door, we observed the lobby camera. Brooke appeared flawless. Professional attire, modest jewelry, and a thoughtful expression on her face. I noticed that she was holding a leather folder, the identical one from her office, that contained stolen dreams and falsified documentation. Sweating through his beautiful shirt and glancing around the lobby, Jared appeared to be on the verge of becoming ill. He was aware that this entire plan was flawed. He was too weak and afraid of his wife to stop it, even though he had always known. They went up to the front desk agent, grinned and provided their names. With a smile in return, the receptionist guided them down a hallway to the meeting room, where 3 individuals were waiting. First to arrive, Brooke was self-assured and prepared to complete the largest theft of her life. Gray-haired and solemn, Warren Ducker sat at the head of the table. When she came in, he didn't up to shake her hand or smile. There were two other individuals seated at the table, a male and a woman in business attire. In the doorway, Brooke paused. "I thought this was a private meeting," she replied. "The one she used when she sensed something was off," said that honey-sweet voice once more. Ducker gave a blank reply. "Mrs. Whitford, please have a seat. Morrison and Park are the detectives. Regarding the documentation you submitted, they have some inquiries." I can see my sister's expression through the camera feed. The flicker of perplexity, the fast calculation behind her eyes, and the choice to act brazenly. She took a seat, folded her hands on the table and crossed her legs. "Naturally, anything I can assist with. Does the paperwork have a problem?" Detective Morrison seemed composed, almost amiable. She requested that Brooke verify her name, our relationship, and her position as co-trustee of our parents' inheritance. Everything was confirmed by Brooke, who exuded confidence and ease. She continued to believe that she could talk her way out. Morrison then set two documents side by side on the table. My signature from the faked authorization forms is on the left. My actual signature, as confirmed by bank records, is on the right. Could you explain the discrepancy between these signatures, Mrs. Whitford? Barely a heartbeat for a split second. I caught a glimpse of fear on Brooke's face. The mask then smashed back down. The handwriting of my sister is somewhat erratic. That's how she's always been. To be honest, she's psychologically ill. I have records pertaining to her instability. I am able to demonstrate. She was interrupted by Detective Park. Your documents has been examined by us. The notes regarding the alleged mental health problems of your sister. He hesitated. Something intriguing. According to her workplace, she is among the most meticulous individuals they have ever worked with. She is in outstanding physical and mental health, according to her doctor. According to testimonials from 3 co-workers, she is incredibly reliable and dependable. There were cracks in the mask. They don't see her in the same way that I do. Mrs. Whitford, family is aware of the facts. There was steel behind Morrison's still calm voice. Our bank records now reveal $180,000 in unapproved withdrawals over a 14-month period. This office and I have corresponded via email regarding emergency trust transfers. Your sister's signatures have been forensically examined, and the results show that they were forged. She set down another paper on the table. Additionally, we have the TU-Mates testing results, a potent mixture of laxatives and sedatives that may keep a patient in the hospital for days. Jared let out a tiny cry akin to an injured animal. Brooke remained still. The honey-sweet look has vanished. What remained beneath was a frigid, cramped object. Morrison then produced a tablet. We want you to hear one more piece of evidence. She hit the play button. The meeting room was filled with the sound of a child's voice. Unmistakable, steady, and clear. When I was 3 years old, Nola, my mother warned me that Aunt Lisa would suffer if I ever spoke again. She said that every word I said would harm her, and that my voice was harmful. In order to keep my aunt safe, I stopped communicating for 5 years. As the recording went on, Nola described what she had heard. The night before the voyage, when she was 3 years old, she received a call. In his meticulous, solemn voice, every detail was conveyed. I had to stop my mother from harming Auntie Lisa. The only person who has ever truly seen me is her. She listened to me even when I was unable to speak. The tape terminated. Quiet. Please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe buttons if this article is keeping you on the edge of your seat. I read every single comment, and your support means the world to me. Let's get this done now. As if the tablet had grown teeth and bitten her, Brooke gazed at it. She can't do that. She doesn't speak. Since she was 3 years old, she has remained silent. She is unable to speak. This is not real. Mrs. Whitford, you made this up. Now Detective Morrison's voice sounded subdued, almost soft. It was made worse by the tenderness. You simply acknowledged that you thought your daughter was mute. However, the actual medical records, not the ones you told your family, state that Nola was diagnosed with selective mutism, a psychological disorder sometimes brought on by trauma or anxiety. She gave that some thought. You scared your daughter into silence for 5 years, which is why she stopped talking. In addition to fraud, forgeries, and attempted poisoning, that is psychological abuse of children. Brooke's expression contorted. The mask didn't simply break. It broke totally. What emerged was rough and unpleasant. At last, the real Brooke was visible. It was expected of her to remain silent. It was never meant for her to. Jared's voice was trembling. Brooke, give up speaking. Simply stop. He looked at the investigators. I'd like a lawyer. A different attorney. I'll comply. I'll tell you everything. Everything was planned by her. The transfers, the signatures. I was simply afraid of her. I'll provide testimony. Whatever you require. Even the detectives were uneasy when Brooke turned on him. You are a pitiful coward. After all I've done for us. Whitford, Mrs. Detective Park got to his feet. You're being detained. Please put your hands behind your back and stand. The handcuffs clicked around her wrists. The reader writes. She continued to speak, attempting to clarify, defend, and influence, but no one remained to do so. Everybody present had witnessed the proof. Her own daughter's testimony had been heard by all. She was escorted out of the building and the conference room and into a police vehicle that was waiting for her. I watched through the camera stream as my sister, the ideal mother, the golden child, the lady who had tried to poison her own sister and scared a 3-year-old into quiet, vanished into the back of that automobile. Nola squeezed my hand. I glanced down at her. It's over, she muttered. It's over. Gwen exhaled deeply. They'll want that Mother of the Year plaque returned, I suppose. Do you think we should mail it to her prison address? I nearly burst out laughing. Nearly. Justice was on the way. However, I had one more task to complete. Franklin County Family Court 2 weeks later. The courtroom was a modest, practical chamber with fluorescent lighting, uncomfortable chairs, and a judge's bench that had witnessed 1,000 destroyed families. It was hardly the huge, dramatic setting you see in movies. However, something was being reassembled today. Wearing my finest business attire, which I wore to significant customer meetings, I took a seat at the front table. This was more crucial than any meeting I had ever had with a client. Nola took a seat next to me. That morning she had chosen her own clothes. Her favorite color is purple. She had combed her own hair. I could tell she was anxious. She was no longer silent, but her foot continued to bounce beneath the table. The case file, Brooke's arrest, the fraud accusations, the forgery, the attempted poisoning, and the 5 years of psychological abuse of a child were all examined by the judge. In return for cooperating with the prosecution, Jared had given up his parental rights. He was aware of everything. He had taken no action to prevent it. He was unworthy of becoming Nola's father, and he knew it somewhere in that cowardly, feeble heart of his. The judge raised his gaze from the documents. He was an elderly man wearing wire-rimmed spectacles and had gentle eyes. He said, "I've looked over the emergency custody petition. I'm ready to rule in light of the situation, the mother's detention, the father's participation, and the copious evidence of psychological abuse." Instead of looking at me, he turned to face Nola. "Young lady, I know you've been silent for many years, but you've just started talking again," she said. "That required a great deal of bravery." Nola gave a nod. "I'd like to ask you directly in your own words," she said, holding my hand so tightly that I was leaking blood. "Where would you choose to reside?" Nola glanced at the judge, then back at me, and finally got to her feet. 8 years old, 4 feet tall, wearing a purple dress, and more courageous than most adults can muster. She declared, "I want to live with my Aunt Lassa." Her voice, which she had sacrificed for 5 years to defend someone she loved, was strong and clear. The only person who has ever truly seen me is her. She listened to me even when I was unable to speak. She read books to me. She took a seat beside me. She never gave me the impression that I was flawed. "She also makes really good pancakes," she said after pausing. The courtroom echoed with quiet laughter. The judge grinned as well. He put his signature on the documents. Lisa Raines was given emergency custody. I kept staring at Nola as I left the courthouse. She was talking endlessly about the courthouse, a bird she spotted on the window ledge, what she wanted for lunch, and whether or not we could get a dog in the future. 5 years of quiet. She was unable to stop talking at this point, and I wouldn't have it any other way. We had dinner in my apartment that night. Our flat. I had already begun transforming the spare room into Nola's bedroom. There are bookcases all over the place, a comfortable reading nook by the window, and purple walls, her choice. Through a mouthful of noodles, Aunt Lisa inquired. Yes, my dear. Could I teach you about dinosaurs? I grinned. Of course. A 25-minute presentation on every dinosaur species Nola has ever read about ensued, along with a thorough analysis of which would prevail in combat. It seems like T-Rex has unfair advantages due to media prejudice, and velociraptors are completely overvalued because of movies. Nola said that the Ankylosaurus will be the true victor. In essence, a tank with an integrated weapon. I sincerely nodded in agreement with everything. Dinosaur fighting philosophy was not necessary for me to comprehend. All I had to do was listen. The next week, Nola began seeing a childhood trauma specialist. The sessions were challenging at times. It takes time for 5 years of terror and silence to go away. On bad days, she fell silent once more. When the old fear returned, however, there were more pleasant days. There were times when she laughed aloud. She used to sing while taking a shower. There were days when she would come home from school full of stories about new friends who had never known her as Nola, the silent girl. Brooke was charged with several felonies. The evidence was overwhelming. To avoid going to trial, she accepted a plea offer. None of the hearings were attended by me. I had better things to do. The trust fund underwent an audit and was frozen. The majority of the pilfered funds were located and retrieved. I took on the role of sole trustee and carefully managed it for Nola's and my future. The family house was sold by me. There were too many complex memories there. I established an education fund for Nola with a portion of the income. The remainder was saved. Take money that has been multiplied. I sometimes think of my mom and the letter she wrote to Brooke about persevering through cancer. Regarding the silent caution she gave her grandchild. There's a problem with her heart. Patricia Residential recognized the reality of her own daughter. She also defended those who earned it even in death. I like to think she would be pleased with the outcome. Nola and I enjoyed breakfast on the terrace of my small apartment last Saturday morning. Pancakes, orange juice, and early October sunshine. Nothing special. Nola was sharing a dream with me. Something about a castle constructed entirely of waffles, a car-driving penguin, and a very courteous dragon named Gerald who apologized each time he unintentionally set something on fire. It was completely nonsensical. It was flawless. I listened while taking a sip of my coffee. Truly paid attention. Family is meant to sound like this. Not fear, not deceit, not silence. Only this. A child talking endlessly about waffle castles. Light from the woods in the morning. Two individuals who have chosen one another are sitting together and discussing everything and nothing. Mid-story, Nola stopped and turned to face me. I appreciate you listening, Aunt Lisa. For attentive listening, even when I was unable to speak. I extended my hand to give her a firm squeeze. Always, my love. Always. The quietest folks aren't always weak. All they're waiting for is someone they can finally confide in. I found my family and Nola found her voice. There are stories with joyful endings. Ours was only getting started. I really appreciate you viewing. You've already seen some of my most captivating tales. Don't miss the finest part by clicking one right now. You'll adore it. I'll see you at the next.